Oh, really excited about this one. Coming up, we're counting down 10 of the greatest songs from a legendary year in music that should have been massive hits, but somehow never cracked the top 40, even though they defined a generation, they shaped rock history, and became undeniable classics that we listen to every day. As per usual, we got some crazy stories here, like the frontman who got so drunk in a Munich hotel room, the world was spinning around him, but in the middle of his drunken stupor, he came up with one of the most cosmic tracks ever. He woke up with a hangover and had completely forgotten he'd written this song. There's also a guitar legend who wrote a song about a brilliant woman on TV, and he used her to absolutely destroy his ex-girlfriend with some seriously savage lyrics. You gotta hear these. We'll also reveal the infamous lyric from a rock prophet that would haunt him forever after it appeared in one of music's most tragic notes from a legend who took his own life. Plus, the top 2 songs on this countdown are 2 of the most played songs in rock history with about 8 billion streams and listens, but they were never hits. One was almost an instrumental on a solo album, and one is arguably the greatest riff ever. Let's do it. Hey, music junkies, we're counting down the top 10 non-hits of 1979. We're going to get right into it. At number 10, I got The Police with Walking on the Moon. Can you believe this is never a hit? The origin of this song starts in a German hotel room where Sting had knocked back a few too many. Completely hammered, the frontman collapsed onto the bed with the room spinning all around him. Said Sting, and I quote, "I was drunk in a hotel room in Munich, slumped on the bed when the riff came into my head. I got up and started walking around the room singing, walking around the room, walking around the room. That was it. In the cool light of the morning, I remembered what had happened and I wrote the riff down." But walking around the room, it was a stupid title. So he thought of something even more stupid, Walking on the Moon. Thank heavens he did, though, because that stupid title was a great fit. Actually, he woke up with a hangover. He'd forgotten that he wrote a song until he remembered, and he put it all down. There's actually another layer to the story of this song, though. Years later, Sting revealed that his first real girlfriend was also an inspiration. Her name was Deborah Anderson, and Sting remembered walking home from her house feeling lighter than air. That weightless feeling of new love perfectly captures the vibe of this song. Now, musically, Walking on the Moon focuses on the basics. Andy Summers plays 2 sparse guitar parts, leaving tons of space in the mix. Of course, the reggae pulse from Sting's bass and Stuart Copeland's drums do the heavy lifting here. Bubbling underneath everything is a Roland GR500 guitar synthesizer, adding these spacey textures that make the whole track feel otherworldly.
Well, the skipping hi-hat used a device called a delay line, or a repeat echo. And that was something that the dub cats would use in dub reggae. And so there was a whole world of playing with repeats, with the echo, the slapback. I figured out a technique where I could have just one hit, da, da. So I hit the drum once and go, da, and then there's a repeat, da, da. And every time I play with the repeat, it's like a dog barking at itself in the mirror. Forgive me, playing with myself.
Released on November 4th, 1979, Walking on the Moon shot straight to number 1 in the UK. After the success of Message in a Bottle, that made for back-to-back chart toppers for The Police. They were huge. Walking on the Moon also hit number 1 in Ireland and number 2 in Italy, and it broke the top 10 across Europe and pretty much around the world. However, here in the US, Walking on the Moon was never released as a single. That's why it never charted on the Billboard Hot 100. Although Message in a Bottle stalled out at number 74, so might not have done well at that point because The Police were not well known in America. They were still trying to break through at this point. But man, Walking on the Moon has become a classic rock staple in the States for sure. All right, coming in at number 9, I've got a great one. Breakfast in America by Supertramp.
Take a look at my girlfriend. She's the only one I got.
So Tramp co-frontman Roger Hodgson was just 18 years old and living in England when he wrote Breakfast in America. It was the late 60s, and like millions of other British kids, he was watching the Beatles take over America. And this really got to him. Seeing those gorgeous California girls on TV and imagining this land of endless opportunity, Roger started dreaming about making that journey himself. So he wrote a song from the perspective of an English kid fantasizing about crossing the ocean and making it big in the States. Now, Roger Hodgson ultimately moved to California. By the time Supertramp recorded their Breakfast in America album, he and keyboardist Rick Davies had been living in the States for many years, even though he wrote the song long before that. The California lifestyle had definitely rubbed off on them. When they were putting together the track list, Roger pulled out this song that he'd written years earlier, even though it had been sitting in his arsenal since he was a teenager. It just felt right for the album's vibe, and of course, that's what they called the album. However, Breakfast in America isn't exactly a love letter to the United States if you read into it. As Roger Hodgson put it, the line, "playing my jokes upon you," that basically sums up the whole song. It's tongue-in-cheek. A cheerful pop tune secretly poking fun at the American dream. The recording sessions, they took 8 months, and Roger was so committed to getting it perfect that he more or less moved into the studio for the final month to make sure it got there. He knew the collection of songs was really strong. You know, the logical song, Take the Long Way Home, Goodbye Stranger, of course, this title track. But not everybody was sold on Breakfast in America. Rick Davies, he hated that opening line. Take a look at my girlfriend, she's the only one I got. He just thought it was too simple. He thought it was too trite. Rick wanted Roger to change it to something funnier, more meaningful. Roger tried rewriting it, but nothing really worked, so he kept the original. And of course, I'm glad he did. Ironically, Roger didn't even have a girlfriend when he wrote those words. If he did, he joked the relationship probably wouldn't have lasted much longer after that line.
Don't you look at my girlfriend, she's the only one I got.
Despite being the album's title track and the namesake, Breakfast in America was never released as a single in the US, so it never charted on the Hot 100. Still, it's definitely one of the defining tracks in Supertramp's career, perfectly capturing their satirical edge. All right, coming in at number 8, I've got one of my favorites, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers with Even the Losers. Now, the story of Even the Losers, it starts in 1969 when Tom Petty's father got talked into enrolling his son in art school in Tampa. This was by a door-to-door salesman. The real reason? Draft deferment during Vietnam. Tom didn't care much about the classes, but Tampa meant he could be closer to his girlfriend, Jan Matthews. He'd met her at a gig with the band The Epics and kept hidden, the relationship at least, hidden from his parents. Tom spent his days hanging out on the beach and working odd jobs, first washing dishes and then at a funeral home run by Jan's dad. But when his father caught them in bed together, this was it. Tom headed back home to Gainesville with his tail between his legs. Now, shortly after returning, Tom and his buddy Mike Nixon went to a party, and I guess they dropped acid for the very first time. While tripping, Tom spotted a girl named Cindy. She was an old middle school crush who had rejected him at one time, but something was different at this point. Tom Petty was cool. He had long hair, he had this new vibe, and they ended up on a rooftop together smoking cigarettes, and they skipped rocks on a lake below an interstate overpass, so there was that. For one night, Tom thought his luck had finally turned for the better. The next morning, though, was a harsh reality check. Cindy made it crystal clear that that night together was a one-time deal. Many years after that, Tom Petty had to admit that this girl was probably in a lot of his songs. She just had this way about her. And nearly a decade later, when Tom was cutting Even the Losers in the studio, he had everything ready except the chorus lyrics. But when it came time to record, he still didn't know what he was going to sing. And then, boom. Divine intervention. The words just poured out of him. Even the losers get lucky sometimes. The whole chorus was perfect. First take. He did it in the studio. He just did it in the vocal booth without even thinking about it. Even the Losers, it was never released as a single in the US. Still, the song became a fan favorite and a staple of classic rock radio. A true Tom Petty classic. What's the greatest gift of all time? A mint vinyl, A Dark Side of the Moon? Maybe. But I'd argue it's the memories that music brings rushing back. That's why this year I'm giving Aura Frames. It's like a greatest hits album of your life, playing on repeat. Loaded with concert pics, old family holidays, or that classic snap of your dad wearing socks with sandals at the beach. But the best part, you can preload photos before it ships. You can keep adding pics anytime from your phone. It even comes in a beautiful gift box ready to wow. It's personal, it's meaningful, and much better than another ugly sweater, right? You can't wrap togetherness, but you can definitely frame it. For a limited time, visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver Matte frames. Named #1 by Wirecutter. You can use promo code ROCKROCK at checkout. That's AURAFrames.com, promo code ROCK. Terms and conditions apply. Aura Frames' best deal of the year, so don't miss it. All right, coming in number 7, I got The Sad Cafe by Eagles. Back in the early 70s, a Troubadour nightclub in West Hollywood was where everything happened for the Eagles. This is where Don Henley and Glenn Frey first crossed paths. It's where they hung out with J.D. Souther and Jackson Browne, scheming and dreaming about their futures. Along with Dan Tana and his restaurant next door, these were the places where they gathered, the young musicians. They gathered with optimism. They were convinced that anything was possible. Fast forward to 1979. The Eagles knew The Long Run was going to be their last album for a long time, maybe forever. For the closing track, though, Henley and Frey decided to create a bookend to the beginning of the band's career. They wrote The Sad Cafe as an elegy, kind of the glory days of the Troubadour and Dan Tana's, a nostalgic look back at their lost innocence, if you will.
Now look at the years gone by.
The song reflected how much had changed. By the late 70s, the LA scene had grown cold and jaded. Friends and acquaintances from those early days, they were gone. Success had left scars, too. The line that hit Glenn Frey hardest was, "I don't know why fortune smiles on some and lets the rest go free." This raised uncomfortable questions about whether they had been ready for the fame when it finally did arrive. Musically, The Sad Cafe, it's a slow, gentle ballad with Don Henley on vocals. Don Felder delivers a subdued but distinctive guitar solo. Of course, jazz virtuoso David Sanborn provides a saxophone break. Sad Cafe, it's a moving song. It's a slow, gentle ballad. Don Henley's perfect on vocals. Don Felder delivers that subdued but distinctive guitar solo, and David Sanborn provides that saxophone. It's thoughtful, it's melancholy, and a lot of critics felt it leaned a bit too close to easy listening. That's what they said. I disagree. The Long Run topped the American album charts for the final 9 weeks of 1979, eventually selling over 10 million copies, spawned 3 top 10 singles, but The Sad Cafe, it wasn't one of them. It just never got its chance. Heartache Tonight, The Long Run, and I Can't Tell You Why, they were all the major hits, but The Sad Cafe would remain a hidden gem, a bittersweet bookend to the Eagles' incredible 70s run. All right, coming in at the number 6 position, a double dose of Neil Young. From his album Rust Never Sleeps, it's the twin tracks My My Hey Hey Out of the Blue. And Hey Hey My My Into the Black. In 1979, Neil Young released 2 versions of one of the most brutally honest examinations of rock and roll survival ever written. My Hey Hey Out of the Blue, that was a stripped down acoustic track, and Hey Hey My My Into the Black, that was its electric counterpart. Recorded with his band Crazy Horse, both versions appeared on his album Rust Never Sleeps, each offering a different perspective on the same devastating theme: the fleeting nature of fame and the struggle to really stay relevant. The concept, it's simple, but man, it's cutting. Going out of the blue and into the black is the moment when popularity fades and you slip from the spotlight into really forgotten obscurity. Now, Neil Young, he wasn't pulling any punches here. He laid out the rock and roll ethos in stark terms. It's better to burn out really bright than to slowly decay into nothing. As Neil explained it, rock and roll doesn't look ahead. It's right now, this second. And that's the spirit. Throughout the song, Neil drops references to rock history. He actually nods to Danny and the Juniors' 1958 declaration that rock and roll is here to stay. Rock and roll is here to stay. And he tips his hat to Elvis. The king is gone, but he's not forgotten.
King is gone, but he's not forgotten.
Of course, he died 2 years earlier in 1977. He name checks Johnny Rotten and the Sex Pistols, who seemed determined to burn out spectacularly at that point.
It's the story of the Johnny Rotten, Johnny Rotten.
The line that would echo throughout rock history came in the acoustic version. It's better to burn out than to fade away.
It's better to burn out than to fade away.
Those words became tragically immortal in 1994 when Kurt Cobain quoted them in his suicide note. Neil admitted it messed with him deeply. Years later, he explained that he'd been trying to reach Kurt after hearing about his struggles, wanting to tell him it's okay not to tour, it's okay to step back and just take control. The song was about artistic survival, not literal death. When both versions were released as a single, Hey, Hey, My, Into the Black got the A-side treatment, and that it became really the radio staple. But despite its later cultural impact and rock airplay on rock stations, the single had never broke into the top 40. Halfway through the countdown at number 5 from their sophomore album, Communique, I've got Dire Straits with Lady Rider. Man, what a song. So on April 16, 1978, English novelist and historian Marina Warner appeared on the BBC Arts program Read All About It. She was there promoting her provocative 1976 book, Alone of All Her Sex. This was a study of Catholic veneration of the Virgin Mary. Now, Mark Knopfler happened to catch her on TV that day, and something just clicked. He saw this intelligent, accomplished woman talking about history and literature, and it sparked an idea for a song, Lady Rider. Knopfler was straightforward about the song's origins. He said, I just saw some woman talking on the television. It's absolutely what it says. She was just talking on the television. Always on the lookout for a good story. Of course, Mark Knopfler being a former journalist, he would write about anything that caught his attention. But Lady Rider isn't just an innocent observation. There's a dark edge lurking beneath the surface. A vengeful subtext aimed at Knopfler's ex-girlfriend, and man, it's hardcore. The narrator watches this brilliant woman on TV, and he can't help comparing her to his former lover, and she comes painfully short. Lyrics here are brutal, to say the least. And I know you never read a book, and you couldn't hardly write your name. Scathing put-downs, and the message is clear. She was all beauty, no brains. Dire Straits debuted the song live in Rotterdam on October 19, 1978, right after their summer break and just weeks before heading to record Communique. Now, musically, Lady Rider treads familiar ground. It basically recycles the Sultans of Swing formula. Same opening snare snap, similar tempo, same signature Knopfler guitar work. But really, that's where the similarities end. When Lady Rider was released as a single in June of 1979, it completely flopped. Whereas Sultans of Swing went to number 8 in the UK and number 4 here in the US, Lady Rider stalled at number 51 in the UK and number 45 here. Was the arrangement too familiar? Or the lyrics too cerebral? Whatever the reason, radio didn't know what to do with it. I got to tell you, though, this one definitely deserves some more love. And man, he really, this girl did a number on him, and you can tell in many of these songs. Really quick, remember to get your Vintage Years Collection t-shirt. We got a special deal running all through the holidays. Man, you can get it down here, right up here. Again, we celebrate great years of music with all the greats from that year. Heading into the number 4 spot, I've got The Cure with Boys Don't Cry. Growing up in England, Robert Smith felt constant pressure to hide his emotions. To be tough, to be stoic. Don't show weakness ever. That's what boys were supposed to do. But of course, Robert Smith couldn't help wearing his heart on his sleeve. This is what he told the New Music Express in 2019, and I quote, I never found it awkward showing my emotions. I couldn't really continue without showing my emotions. You'd have to be a pretty boring singer to do that. So I kind of made a big thing about it. I thought, well, it's part of my nature to rail against being told not to do something, So I guess you could say he was railing against toxic masculinity, right?
Boys don't
Actually, Boys Don't Cry was a secret protest song, and he said that many times. That rebellious spirit fueled Boys Don't Cry. Robert's attempt at writing the perfect pop song is a tribute to the Beatles and other bands that he loved and grew up with. And man, he nailed it. His vocal delivery is vulnerable, genuinely regretful, but it still has that mischievous spark. Both Robert Smith and manager Chris Perry, they knew they had a potential hit on their hands. But Perry worried the song was too poppy. He wanted The Cure to project an edgier image so that they'd be taken more seriously. So Boys Don't Cry, it got shelved. Instead, the band's first single was the sparse and confrontational song. I actually can't say it on here, or I'll get banned. I'll just show it to you. I'm the stranger. Perry even left Boys Don't Cry off The Cure's debut album, saving it to release as a single later on. When it finally dropped in June of 1979 as their second single, it bombed. That's a head-scratcher. Perry blamed the failure on their label Polydor for not pushing it hard enough. Whatever the reason, the song was supposed to be massive, but it just went nowhere. Still, over the years, Boys Don't Cry quietly became one of The Cure's signature songs. In 1986, the band included it on their singles compilation Standing on a Beach, which introduced the track to a much wider audience. To drum up excitement for the compilation, Robert even recorded a new vocal for a promotional remix. And this time around, the song finally cracked the UK charts, hitting number 22. They actually had a new video filmed for it as well. However, in the US, Boys Don't Cry never received a proper single release during its original run in 1979. Even the 1986 remix didn't get pushed to American radio, so it never charted on the Hot 100. This was definitely be a top 10 hit if it were been released, in my opinion. All right, coming in at number 3, we've got the mighty Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin, With All My Love. Man, this one starts with a heartbreaking tale. On July 26, 1977, Robert Plant's 5-year-old son, Karak, died suddenly from a viral infection while Robert was touring in America. This tragedy shattered Robert Plant and put enormous strain on his marriage, as understandably they both struggled through unbearable grief. 2 years later, that pain poured out in one of Led Zeppelin's most moving songs and one of the most moving songs of his time. Now, originally titled The Hook, All My Love was composed by John Paul Jones with lyrics by Robert Plant. It appeared on 1979's In Through the Outdoor as a heart-wrenching tribute to Lil Karak. Should I fall out of love, my fire in the light? The song, it feels like Robert is crying out into the universe, searching for his son. Throughout the song, Robert weaves in fabric imagery, a cloak of delight, a thread with no end, cloth to spin, a hand that sews time. He's reaching back to ancient mythology here, specifically the Greek fates, those 3 weaving goddesses who controlled mortal destinies. They spun the thread of life, measured its length, and cut it short with shears. Robert Plant wasn't there when Karak died. He was powerless to stop it. But these mythological symbols gave him a way to process the incomprehensible loss. He is a feather in the wind. Musically, All My Love, it's a rarity in the Zeppelin catalog. An actual pop song. Jones delivers low-key synth patterns and a distinctive bass line if there ever was one. Bonham's drumming, it's powerful but it's restrained. Robert Plant's vocals are introspective and they're melodic. Jimmy Page, he wasn't thrilled. Jimmy worried about audiences doing the wave at concerts and said, that's not us. Kind of a muted response there, but still he contributed stirring texture guitar work that elevated the track. Led Zeppelin actually debuted All My Love live during their 1980 European tour. Coming from the final proper album, In Through the Outdoor, this was the album that critics lambasted. They hated it. Many fans despised it as well. But this song truly saved Robert Plant. It allowed him to truly grieve, and it's one of the most moving performances ever. But despite its emotional depth and pop appeal, the song was never released as a single in the US, so therefore it never charted on the Billboard Hot 100. But man, for anyone dealing with the loss of a loved one, All My Love speaks louder than any top 40 hit ever could. We've made it all the way to number 2, and man, can you believe this one was never a hit song? Arguably the greatest rock guitar riff in history. I mean, if aliens came down to Earth and were to ask me, what is rock and roll? I just play them this song. Talking about AC/DC, Highway to Hell. Okay, here's the story. In February of 1979, AC/DC headed to Criteria Studios in Miami to work with legendary producer Eddie Kramer. But things weren't really clicking. After a few weeks, it became painfully clear that Kramer was not going to be their guy. All right, so one day Malcolm and Angus decided to take matters into their own hands. They snuck off to work alone, and that's when lightning struck. Angus started jamming on guitar while Malcolm, he was hammering away on the drum kit. Suddenly, Angus stumbled onto this halting stop-start riff that had echoes of Freeze All Right Now. Malcolm knew immediately they had something special. As he put it, there were hundreds of riffs going down every single day. But this one, we're like, that's good. It just stuck out like a dog's balls. But Highway to Hell almost died before it was even born. The recording engineer took the only cassette copy of it home, and his young son completely unraveled the tape. It was a total disaster. Good news is, Bon Scott had a knack for fixing destroyed cassettes, and the next day he carefully wound it back together, saving what would become a rock and roll cornerstone. Through their manager, Michael Browning, the band found Kramer's replacement, an up-and-coming producer named Robert John Mutt Lange. Mutt was the game changer this band needed. He took those failed sessions and transformed the band's sound, making it more radio-friendly without losing any of that raw power. That double guitar attack, those massive backing vocals on the chorus, that production polish, Mutt leveled everything up. It was just classic. Despite becoming a poster child for the satanic panic of the 80s, Highway to Hell isn't actually about hell or Satan at all. It's about life on the road. AC/DC had spent most of those early years on the road as a band. According to one story, the title references Canning Highway in Australia, which ran from Bon Scott's home in Fremantle to a rock pub called the Raffles. As you approached the pub, the highway descended into a steep, dangerous decline. No stop signs, no speed limits, nobody gonna slow me down. Now, Brian Johnson offered another take in 2009. He said the song was about those endless bus rides across Australia's plain, when the sun's setting in the west and you're driving straight into it and it looks like a fireball. That's where Bon got the lyrics Highway to Hell. Highway to Hell hit number 47 on the Hot 100. It was AC/DC's chart debut in America. It never cracked the top 40. But it's got almost 5 billion streams today. It's legitimate proof that chart positions, they just don't tell the whole story. All right, we're here, the number 1 position. And this one was really easy, even with Highway to Hell. I got Pink Floyd, Comfortably Numb. So actually, Comfortably Numb began as an instrumental demo recorded by David Gilmour when he was putting together his solo debut in '78. It almost ended up there. But the roots for the lyrics of Comfortably Numb, they go back further than that. Actually back to a nightmare experience that Roger Waters had during Pink Floyd's In the Flesh tour in '77. Playing a show in Philadelphia, Roger Waters was hit with brutal stomach pains. To get him through it, Waters was injected with a muscle relaxant. But the drugs didn't exactly have the desired effect. For the next 2 hours, he was completely out of it. Said Roger Waters, "That was the longest 2 hours of my life, trying to do a show when you can't hardly lift your arm." That hellish experience would become the foundation for one of Pink Floyd's most powerful tracks, and one of the most powerful tracks in rock history. But that's not the only painful memory woven into the song. Back in the summer of 1967, Syd Barrett was found in a frightening catonic state as the International Love-In Festival was beginning. Showtime approached, the stage manager started freaking out, pounding the doors and yelling, time to go, right? Eventually, they got Syd on stage, but he was a ghost up there, unable to help his bandmates at all. Of course, that haunting scene would echo through the wall years later. Fast forward to 1979. Comfortably Numb closes out the third act of The Wall, and it's the climax of Pink's story. Locked in his hotel room, Pink is completely shut down. His manager, of course, banging on the door, but nobody can reach him. So they bring in a doctor who asks, "Hello, is there anybody in there?"
Is there anybody in there?
The physician's solution? Pump Pink full of drugs to get him through the show.
Can ease your pain, get you on your feet.
Of course, it doesn't matter that Pink is falling apart. The show, it must go on.
The show must go on.
Of course, we've talked about this before. This is one of my favorite songs of all time. Roger Waters and David Gilmour split the vocals in one of the best duets ever. Roger Waters is the darkness. He takes the verses as the detached doctor. I mean, his voice floating, it's dreamlike, almost like he's embodying the drug itself.
Can you show me where it hurts?
David Gilmour handles the choruses as Pink, singing about childhood fever dreams and feeling comfortably numb. Pink's memories pull him deeper into the past as the drug takes hold. The song's a brutal takedown of the entertainment machine where profits matter much more than people. But it's also become something bigger. A perfect marriage of Waters' dark storytelling and Gilmour's soaring melodic genius, The Light.
No pain, you are receding.
It's Pink Floyd at their absolute best, which is really saying something. Comfortably Numb, that was released as a single in 1980 with Hey You as the B-side. One of the greatest double-sided tracks ever. But you know what? This song was completely overshadowed by the massive chart-topping success of Another Brick in the Wall Part 2.
We don't need no education.
And it just didn't receive the same attention and promotion as its predecessor. But of course, all these years later, it's the most celebrated track on the album, if not Pink Floyd's entire career. Again, the light and the dark, it's heaven and hell. It's Roger Waters and David Gilmour at their very best. And really, I think it's one of the greatest, it's probably the greatest duet. I mean, everybody would say Freddie Mercury and Queen and David Bowie. I would put this one above it. That's just my opinion. I'll probably get a lot of hate for that one. But there it is. That's our countdown from 1979. Can you believe those top two songs did not chart? Two of the greatest, cornerstones of classic rock. Anyway, that's what you got. Let's have a great celebration below. What are your memories of these songs? What do you think is the greatest song from 1979? I would put these 10 against any of the songs in the top 40 from 1979. I think most of these blow any of them away. What do you think? Let's have a great discussion. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Make sure to get your Vintage Years collection t-shirt. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.